Hello, everybody. So, a majority of you probably only watch this YouTube channel because I've advertised it on DeviantArt. But for those of you who don't know me, hello. I'm Shiny Spherical. Most of you probably either know me from Pete the Hamster, like if you watch him, because he voiced my crappy Bendy comics that for whatever reason he thought was really good to voice act. Or you know me just on DeviantArt in general. But I decided I wanted to try and do one of these speed paint videos, and if you guys like this, I'll try to do more of them. I'm sorry if I'm stumbling and I sound nervous because I've never done this before. So anyway, I decided that I wanted to do a little topic video while I draw a fusion of Mark and Jack, because I was in that because I just wanted to see how much I improved. Anyway, but I'm already rambling. So I decided that I wanted to talk about some of my college stories, as in I want to tell some stories about what has happened to me at college and what my favorite classes have been so far and what my least favorite classes have been so far. And hopefully you guys will find this interesting to listen to. So I'm not going to give the name of my college for obvious reasons, and I'm not going to give the names of any teachers or students I talk about in these stories for obvious reasons. But I'll make up names for privacy's sake. So I guess I will start with my art class stories. Now, a lot of art YouTubers will have you believe that having an art professor or just having an art class in general at college is the worst thing ever, because they don't allow creativity and they won't let you draw what you want to draw and stuff like that. And in a sense, they're right, but they don't do it because they hate you, and they are not doing it because they don't like your art style. They're a lot of the times they're doing it because you if they get met I think Creepshow Art said it best, where she said a lot of the times these people are not doing what's required of the class, and because of that they fail, and then they blame the teacher for it, essentially. And I've actually had a couple classes where those people were obvious in those classes. So especially in my painting class, which actually ended up being one of my favorite classes, because I ended up learning a lot about painting portraits in that class. But and it's actually the class that inspired me to start doing digital paintings on my DeviantArt, with my pet and with YouTubers I like. But in that class, it was a beginner's painting class. So he wasn't expecting people who were coming into that class to be Picasso or Michelangelo. He wasn't expecting them to be master level painters. Literally all he asked is that you do the assignments, you do what he tells you, you meet the requirements for the assignment, and you would easily pass the class with an A or a B. And he wanted us to practice, one of the main things in the class was he wanted us to try and make it look somewhat realistic, and he wanted us to show growth as time went on. He wanted us to show that we had improved and that we had actually learned something from each of the projects. And there were several students that didn't do that. Like there was one girl where every single painting project we did, which I think we had like 4 or 5 throughout the entire semester, she, for whatever reason, didn't listen to the criticism that he gave, and a lot of times it wasn't because she was a bad artist, it was just because she wasn't doing the techniques that people told her that she needed to do. And it also wasn't, usually when we had critiques, it wasn't a one-on-one critique with the professor. It was like the whole class would give their opinions on our paintings and give us suggestions. And one of the things she would do was she would use way too much paint, to the point where it was muddy and you could just tell that it didn't look right. And this affected her paintings a lot because we were practicing things like shading and like tone shifts and like things like that, where like you had to add a lot of detail, and she wouldn't do that, despite everyone telling her that it would be an easy way to fix her paintings. And whenever we would suggest stuff like that, she would she would rather just cross her arms and sit there and pout and just say like, oh, well, the painting's terrible, so I'll just like burn it later, I guess. And it was funny because it's like, why are you taking a painting class, or why are you even in an art class if you're not going to take criticism well? Like, especially when a lot of the times in these art classes, criticism is expected. And then there was another girl where it was like our final project painting, which was to paint a self-portrait. And a lot of people didn't like it because a lot of the people in the class were introverted and didn't really like... They were introverted, and a lot of us didn't have high self-esteem about how we looked, and we didn't really like looking at pictures of ourselves for the most part. But he made the project more fun by saying like he wanted us to, not only were we going to paint a self-portrait of ourselves, but he wanted us to paint us as a character that we liked. But we couldn't just flat out paint ourselves as the character. He wanted us to have either a prop or like a subtle thing, like an article of clothing or something that would hint at the character. So it made it a lot of fun for us. But this one girl, like the whole point of the project was to practice with lighting and to make it obvious where the light was coming from in our painting. And one girl didn't. It's either she didn't understand what the point of the project was, or she just flat out didn't want to do what the professor had asked her. She decided that she was going to paint herself as the Joker, like Batman Joker, which was fine. But she decided that instead of doing it in the way that the professor wanted everyone to do it, she decided that she was going to instead paint it as an actual comic book character. Like, she was going to shade it and draw it as an actual comic book would. Like, and because she did that, like, one of the rules of the project was that we couldn't shade with black. We had to shade with like a dark brown, but no, she decided to paint entirely with black, or shade entirely with black, and that looked really bad because all of our paintings had black backgrounds, so it looked like parts of her face and parts of her body were missing. And and there would be some parts where she would add a little bit of shading, and then there were other parts where she wouldn't add any shading at all, and it just, like, it was, like, she wasn't a bad artist, it was just the concept and what she tried to do, and the fact that she went against what the professor wanted us to do, it just didn't look right compared to every other painting that was in the class. And we didn't tell her, like, oh, your painting's horrible or anything. We gave constructive criticism, and people suggested, like, you really shouldn't have, shaded with just using complete black. You should have, like, like, you should have, like, made it a subtle, like, change in the shading, like, from dark to middle to light. And, and, like, after we all kind of gave constructive criticism, she, once again, like, she didn't take it well, just like the other girl, and just pouted and was like, well, does anyone have anything good to say about it? And we're all just sitting there, like the point of giving a critique or giving criticism is not to just shower you with compliments, despite what many artists will tell you. The point of criticism is to, whether it be harsh or whether it be, like, perfectly sound or sweet sounding, whatever, like, the whole point of criticism is to help you improve. It's supposed to point out what you did right and what you did wrong, and it's supposed to give you advice on how you can improve. It's not meant to shower you in compliments and to constantly be giving you positive attention. Not all criticism is positive criticism, okay? But those girls in my painting class didn't do well, like, on the projects, and didn't do well in the class because they constantly proved that they didn't listen to the criticism and that they didn't want to improve. Like, they would rather just do their own thing than actually try to learn new things and try to improve on their skills and on their art style. And it's, like, and to be fair, that's literally all our professors, that's literally all they're asking from you, is that you just, try to improve at least a little bit. I'm not saying all art professors are great. I'm not saying all art professors are good teachers, but for the most part, they're artists too, and the most they want to see from you is that you improve and that you understand what they're trying to teach you. And now for a more kind of happier story is, I have a professor. I've had him for 2 classes. I won't say his full name, but I'm just gonna call him Mike. But he is probably the best professor I've had. He's been very supportive of me, especially with the kind of stuff that I draw. He has been my drawing professor for a year, and then he has also been my 2D design professor, and he's absolutely the best. He's very supportive of he's very supportive of art, like, in all shapes and forms. He supports animation. He supports, like whether you draw realistically or super cartoony, he will absolutely love your artwork no matter what, as long as you're striving to improve, and as long as you're doing your best, and as long as you're trying to better yourself as an artist. Like, he will love whatever you do. And he has actually given me so many useful tips when it comes to drawing the characters that I draw, that like, I personally consider him one of my inspirations. And crap, sorry. I had a brain fart there. But yeah, he, I'm just I'm just pointing out that, like, not all our professors are, like, horrible people. I I've had another art professor. He's actually been my animation professor for 2 classes, and I'm actually going to have him again next semester. And he's not great, but he's not horrible either. He is first of all, he is Japanese. He is like a Japanese animator, and he knows a lot about animation and a lot about art. He can be a little blunt sometimes, but like like he can be a bit blunt and he can be a bit harsh with his criticism, but he's not like super hateful or anything. Like, because I remember when I turned in my final animation, it was the Mr. Teddy Wants to Play animation. That was like my first 3D animation that I've ever done. In fact, it was the only animation that I've ever done, and I was super proud of it. And he only gave one piece of criticism, which was that he was like, oh, it could use more animation. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. He didn't say anything else about it, and I was thinking, like, well, he must have hated it then because it didn't have a lot of animation. But then I would get my grade back the next day, and he gave me an A in the class, and I'm sitting there like, oh, I guess he didn't hate it. I guess he did like it. And, I don't know, he's very blunt, but I don't think he means to be, like, or sound hateful, like, when he gets to. And I also have another story relating to artists who think that they don't have to listen to what the teacher says in this class. Like, I had another animation class with him, but it was for 2D animation, and it was actually the animation that I made for Clara and Friends, like my little SSS characters, and my boyfriend, my guy friend, boyfriend, Cody's characters, and there was a guy in the class where he clearly was passionate about art, but he complained about it a lot. He wanted to do art, but he just didn't want to do the art that the professors in the school wanted him to do. He didn't like animation. He didn't consider animation or cartooning or anything like that to be actual art. He basically was like one of those people where he thought traditional and like paintings and realism was the only way you could be a real artist, which, why was he taking a 2D animation class if he thought that? But whatever. Every time he had to do a project, every time he had to do anything relating to making a cartoon or making a cartoon character, like, he would barely put any effort into it, and then he would complain when he got a bad grade on it. And it's just like, you know, some of us actually want to be here, and some of us are actually trying to get better at animation, and it's kind of insulting that you're sitting here, like, and keep in mind, college isn't like high school or middle school where, like, they just force classes upon you and then you just have to deal with it. Like, in college, you sign up for your own classes, you choose your own classes. So he, like, from the sounds of it, like, I think he even said at one point that he willingly chose the class and yet he was complaining that the class was mostly 2D animation and learning how to design characters that you could actually animate in like a cartoon or something. And it's like, why did you even sign up for the class then if you think this is stupid? Like, and then he like I don't get people like that. I don't get people like that. That's something else. Like, there's like a lot of students in the art building too who are like him, who don't consider certain aspects of art to be real art. Like, some kids don't think digital art is real art, and they think doing traditional art is the only real form of artwork, and that is stupid. It's like we're still creating things. We just prefer to use a computer, and we can prefer to like just okay. Why am I trying to excuse this? There's no one true form of art, no matter what people like to believe. And then, but I think I've rambled on enough about the art stuff for like from like my college. There, I think I'll move on to like. Oops, sorry, I'm adjusting my seat. I think I'll move on to like to a class that I didn't like, which the class was world religion, and I was actually kind of sad that this ended up being a class that I hated because I was actually excited for this class, but then the professors ended up being horrible. It was one of those weird classes where there were two professors. Like, basically there was one professor that just taught the regular class, and then there was another professor that taught like the advanced version of the class, but for whatever reason they were both in the same class. So I hated this class for a lot of reasons. First of all, like at first it just seemed like the class was just gonna be like read a few chapters of a book and then you'll have a quiz about it the next day. Except even then, that ended up not being true because the professor would never tell anybody when the quizzes were. Like, at first it was like, oh, it'll be the day after I assign you a reading thing, or after I assign you to read these few pages, and then it was like, oh, it'll be next week or it'll be a week after I assign you the reading things, and then it was like, oh, I don't know when we're gonna have a quiz. And so, basically, it was kind of like, you better catch up on the reading while you can, because who the heck knows when we're going to have a test over this, because the professor doesn't even know. And then but then later on he wanted us we had 3 papers that we had to write for this class, and a lot of them were comparing stories and ideas that were in the world religion book. And, as most of my friends know, I am an absolutely horrible writer. I hate writing. I hate writing about stuff that I just don't know about. Even if I do know about it, it's the reason that I do comics so much rather than just write out a story. I would much rather just show you what happened or show you what I think rather than just type it out. And I guess I've gotten better at that as I've gotten older, but I'm still more of a visual person than I am a let me type all this out to you person. But like, I did horrible on all of the papers because except I wasn't the only one that did horrible on the papers. like, I expected to do horrible. I expected myself to do horrible on the papers because I just don't like writing in general. But there were, like, kids in the class who, like, they would do amazing on, like, the quizzes and stuff, and they would do amazing on the tests and all that, and then they would get, like, an F or a D on the papers, and a lot of us came to realize that, like, a lot of us came to realize that most of the class, like, was not doing good on these papers, and we kind of started wondering, like, what we did wrong, and then we started looking at the thing, and then, like, the professor would tell us, like, that we didn't meet the requirements of the paper, but then we would look at like, the guide for, like, writing the paper, and we would, like, look through, and he would tell us that, like, we had, like, checked all the boxes on the guide, and we were like, okay, well, why are we failing the papers? And he would be like, oh, because you didn't do these specific things that I didn't put on the guide. And it's like, well, how are we supposed to know what to write about if you don't tell us what to write about? And there were other instances where he like, wouldn't explain himself well on, like, a certain subject, or he would talk about things that weren't important later on, and I barely passed the class with a C because, like, even, it was one of those stupid classes where you could do amazing on the tests, you could do amazing on the quizzes, you could do amazing on the assignments, but if you got, like, a bad grade on any of those 3 papers out of the hundreds of assignments that he gave you, your grade would immediately drop, and it was one of those stupid classes that I I can't stand those classes, because it's like, I've worked hard on all this other stuff, why is me doing bad on this one stupid thing that you only assign, like, every 4 weeks? Like, why is that what brings my grade down? Like, rather than, like, it be a test or something. But anyway, and then there was, I'm trying to think here. There was another class where, like, this, I don't know why I had like a few, honestly, I've had less bad classes in college than I have like, I did in high school, but that's, like, a topic for another day, because I'm trying to focus on college right now. But, I had, another bad class I have was, like, art history, and because of this class, I absolutely despise art history. Like, I'm not saying, like, oh, why is art history important, or, oh, art history, like, doesn't matter at all. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, I would never take another art history class because of this class. So, first of all, it was, like, one of the first classes I took, like, in my first year of college. And I absolutely hated this class from the get-go, because it wasn't in a classroom. It was in an auditorium on campus with, like, 500 plus students. The teacher couldn't teach to save her life, and it was very difficult to ask for help from her, and it was very difficult to, like, ask questions and stuff about assignments or about tests or about, like, the lecture, because it was 500 plus students in an auditorium, and as soon as she was done, she would just leave. Like, you couldn't even you couldn't ask her a question in class. And even if you tried to email her, she just wouldn't respond to you. She just wouldn't email you back. She was very oblivious to a lot of stuff that happened in that class because of it being an auditorium. Because there were kids that I knew. I mean, not really kids. There were students that I knew. One of them was my RA, and they flat out admitted that they cheated on a lot of her tests because she would she would walk around the auditorium but she would just never notice them because she didn't have the energy to walk in between the rows and make sure everybody was being honest on the test. There was even one chick that I knew, the chick from my dorm building, who actually wrote the answers on her arm in Sharpie. And the teacher never noticed this chick. And she sat right in front of the teacher, too. She sat in the row, right in front of where the teacher was talking. And, handing out the tests and stuff. And she never noticed that this chick, was writing on her arm. She never noticed it. She never noticed that the chick had Sharpie on her arm that had the test answers on it. And she ended up passing the final exam doing that. This teacher was horrible. And then we had to there was another time where we had to turn in a paper, and she told us that if we didn't hand it to her in class, then we had to hand it to her in our office. But the due date for it was the week before Christmas break, and she said she wouldn't be in her office after that week. She told us to turn it into her office because she wasn't going to be in class that week, so we didn't even really have the option to turn it into her class anyway. So a lot of us went to her office, which my campus is on a hill, and her office was in one of the buildings on top of the hill, so we had to climb up a hill to get to her office, and then we would get to her office around the times that she said she was going to be there during that week, and she just wouldn't be there. And then, the final day of the week, which was, the day that we were supposed to turn it in by, a lot of us gave up because she just was never in her office. And we ended up a lot of us taped our papers to her door, or we would slide them under her door. And then this woman, this lady, had the nerve to email us and tell us that she was deducting points because we had the gall to turn it into her office. As if it was our fault that her office door was locked and that she was never there when she said she was going to be there. So I ended up passing that class with a D because of that. I got kind of fussy with that. I got kind of angry about that, but it's just just the salt of dealing with supposed to be professionals at a college campus. Okay, I'll end off this by talking about a couple more classes that I thoroughly enjoyed. Another class I thoroughly enjoyed was my graphic design classes, because I actually had to take my graphic design classes because I am majoring in graphic design. But I absolutely love my graphic design teacher. He was a big sweetheart. He kind of made me think of my character Jeremy, where he was kind of hippie-ish, and he was he was he was he was a pretty old guy, but he was also just a giant cinnamon roll. Like he was just super sweet, super encouraging. Uh, he I remember one time he came into class and he literally had just got done teaching like another class that involved paint, and he literally came into class one time with his clothes just soaked in paint, and he just taught the class like that, didn't even care. And then there was another time he came into class with flowers in his hair, and he taught the entire class with flowers in his hair. And he's just a very, very sweet person. He actually helped a lot of us get our first jobs as graphic designers. I wasn't one of those people, but he helped a lot of classmates get out there in regards to graphic design. And he he also he also just showed me like that I'm good enough to do something in graphic design. Like, he showed me that I actually do know what I'm doing when it comes to designing things like posters and logos and just a lot of things relating to graphic design. And like he has just been a big old sweetheart like the entire time I've known him. He also I've noticed, especially last year, like he tends to do a lot of his own art projects at our campus. Like, he does skateboard sculptures, I believe. Like, I've seen, like, when I had a sculpting class, he would come in there like during studio hours, and he would be like cutting skateboards in half and like welding them to metal and stuff and making these weird abstract sculptures with skateboards, and it was hilarious. And he also doesn't drive a car to class to teach his class. Like, I remember I saw him walk out of the building one day, and he literally just hopped on this little tiny green scooter and literally just rode a scooter to and from campus, and it was the cutest thing I have ever seen. Like God bless this man. He is too cute and too pure for this world. And then another story is I will what class should I talk about that actually does have some interesting stories? Let's see, how about public speaking. I had a public speaking class that was a lot of fun, and the public speaking class kind of helped me get over my public speaking a little bit, but my teacher helped me get a class, like, she helped me meet a professor where he helped me get better at designing cartoons and helped me get better at getting to know people in the cartooning industry, and I will forever be grateful for that. She has been the sweetest person, and she was constantly telling me how talented I was in that class. She also liked our first presentation was to talk about like stuff to talk about like what we wanted to do with our lives, and when I showed off my comics and stuff, she said that she absolutely enjoyed looking at the comics that I made and looking at the comics that I had planned to make, and she has been very encouraging. So yeah, I believe that is all I have to talk about right now. I'm sorry if this seems very, very rambly, very stumbly, very, just seems very out of order or unfocused. Like, again, I've never done something like this before, and I'm not used to doing, like, YouTube things, like, especially, like, just me sitting here talking about my life and stories. But if you guys enjoy listening to me ramble and talk about this kind of stuff, and if you would like, if you have any suggestions of what you would like to hear me talk about and hear me ramble over, you can either comment below, or you could note me on DeviantArt. I'll link my DeviantArt down below there, and yeah. So, thank you. Bye.